Rugby World Cup, how we have missed you. Welcome back and welcome to you all to this first little chat video on the Rugby World Cup. Now, welcome along everyone. If you're new to the channel, welcome along, and we are here to discuss what has been going on in the Rugby World Cup over the last 24 hours. I mean, we have had a great little opening ceremony. We've had our first match-up. Of course, as many of you may know, during these matches I'm very active on Twitter with updates and things that I feel that's going on and what I think, you know, is good and bad and what have you. So if you're new around here and you do have a Twitter or you don't, you know, go and make one, give us a follow as well, and, you know, get joined in the discussions, because it's always great to, you know, watch the match with more passionate rugby fans as well out there. So get on Twitter and let's get some banter going on in there as well. It's fantastic for all you guys who already joined me as well. You know what I'm talking about, and thank you everyone who joined me for the opening night last night. Hopefully we'll see you all for plenty more games over the next 6 weeks as well. Before the tournament kicked off, I was going to do a little video thing like this with a bit of a wrap on what had happened on every couple of match days. If something big happened, you know, I was going to cover those sorts of things. But we had this first match, England versus Fiji, and I'm sorry, but this one just took the whole bloody bakery for me. It was a match of so many different sides, so many different changes. So much happened in that game. I thought I have to cover this straight away. I can't do it instantly after the kickoff because, to be fair, I was quite annoyed. It's not the results. I think England was always going to win that match, and that was half the reason why I was quite annoyed. But just the whole fact of what happened and the whole what seems to be a disrespect towards these island nations that, you know, just seem like they're treated as they're there just to fill in and make up the numbers so England can show off, you know, their opening match of the World Cup. Now, I'm not specifically picking on England. This happens from all the big nations. You know, New Zealand do it as well. Australia do it. Of course, everyone does it. But this opening match was a real kick in the guts, I think, to especially Fiji for multiple reasons, which we'll cover throughout the video. But it was, you know, opening ceremony kicked off, which was quite a wondrous thing. The crowd were getting into it, loving all their English icons and all that sort of thing. Opening ceremonies are a chip in a packet. You know, they don't really have too much effect on what's going on, but the match is what the real action happened. And, you know, straight from the start, straight from the kickoff, I love to see the passion and the, you know, that the Fijians have when they go out to represent their country. You know, I think that's something some countries lack in some things, but, you know, you see the Fijians out there, they're laying everything on the line before the game's even started. Their pride in their country is the number one thing. And they don't care, you know, win, lose or draw. They're still proud of Fiji, proud of where they've come from, you know, proud of everything about their country. And that was a great start, you know, kicked everything off on a good note for me. I thought, you know, this is great to see this passion and pride back in rugby. You know, we've missed it for 4 years, and it is all back there, cracking out straight away. So the game kicked off underway, and then the first real thing that really bothered me kicked off underway. We had a bit of a tip tackle on one of the English players by a couple of Fijians, and at that point it was, you know, only about 10 minutes into the game, and I put my head in my hands, you know, and thought, this is it, game over already. This is going to be a yellow card. Fiji are done. They won't handle 14 men, although it will boost them up a bit. I think mentally this is going to do them in. But then the ref, Jaco Piper, I think it was, who was the referee for that match, didn't actually give a yellow card for that. And that got me thinking. I was like, wow, what are we seeing here? Are we seeing a bit of a change of, you know, the rulings? Because obviously it wasn't a bad yellow card. I mean, he wasn't dropped on his head. Sure, he went over the vertical, and by the rule book that should be a yellow card, but the way he was put down and everything, I know there's two sides to this argument. Completely drop it out, and no chance of that happening. Always give it a yellow card, or, you know, referee discretion, which is something that as we get on through this, we'll see there was very little of, as the referee couldn't make up his mind or whether he wanted chips or cheese any time in this match at all. So I thought that was a good start. I thought, you know, maybe the refs are going to say, you know, that wasn't so bad. You know, I'm going to put myself out there and say that shouldn't really be a yellow card because it wasn't that bad. So, is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing? I don't know. Let me know what you think, of course, about that. But it was just a couple of minutes later where we did see the first yellow card and the first try of the tournament that went to Mr. Penalty Try. He was the first one to dot down after Matualu going in from the side, kind of collapsing them all. Illegal, and yeah, I guess yellow card and a penalty try. Did it deserve both? Did it not deserve both? That's again a debatable thing, but then, you know, yellow card, bang, it happened quickly. Matualu was gone, and again we went, oh no, our opening match. Is it going to be ruined by a card again? You know, it's probably something I'm going to make a video on very soon, is the amount of yellow cards getting dished out all the time, every single match. I'll be very interested to see, come the conclusion of this tournament, how many yellow cards have been dished out from the tournament. But anyway, we kicked on, and England continued and really did dominate for a good portion there. Mike Brown, who was probably easily the best player from the English side in the match, he scored the first of his 2 tries, and England were looking pretty deep. Well, they weren't looking that decent, not looking okay. The first half was very, very messy, very, you know, very strange. Neither side really dominated too much. Fiji, I have to say, very early, their defence over the whole 80 minutes was sublime. You know, that is one thing I'd really like to push on, is that I think Fiji, a team specifically known to be a very good attacking X-Factor, blockbuster, counter-attack, attack from anywhere, do anything team, learned to defend. I think they defended very well against England. And then a point against England is that they had, for a majority of 60 minutes of that match, they had no running lines. They just ran straight into men twice their size and got absolutely squished. They had no lines, no gaps, and they just acted as if they could run straight through the middle of the Fijian defence, which I think was absolutely outstanding, their defence. And England were just abysmal at running into gaps for the most part of that match. So it was huge for Fiji. The defence was really lifting them up, and later on in the second half, when they started to really dominate the breakdowns as well, when England brought on the changes to bring more physicality to their ball running, they lost so much at the breakdown that Fiji started to dominate that aspect of the match instead. But we're still going through the first half, and you know, as Fiji went on, they did make a few silly mistakes, and the ref was really hammering down hard on them, which is the first point against the ref, because he was so hard on Fiji with every single little half mistake they made. He hammered them, get them around the right way. He hammered them for everything and everything they did, anything at all. Whereas England, I think, were given a lot more leeway throughout that match, given, you know, just those 50-50s went their way, and already, just a few hours after that match, I've already seen there is a lot of bad rap going back on the referee for this match, but more on him later on as well. But I think that first half he was very hard on Fiji. Then the big contentious issue happened. Matualu, back from the bin, scampered down the blind side for what seemed to be a phenomenal try, given as a try by the referee as well. And we're back to Mr. Referee again, Jaco Piper. I hope he is the one who actually did call that match. Try given back to halfway, was going, I think Nanolo was kicking the ball for that goal. I mean, and then the referee comes across and says, oh, I've seen something up here on the big screen I want to have a look at. Just hold on with the kick. And then eventually went on to actually turn his decision back around. Now, this was massive. I was absolutely livid at this point. Absolutely livid. You cannot do that. Now, I don't know what you're thinking about this, but I think you cannot do that at all. If you've got doubts, go to the TMO straight away. If you stuff up and say try, and then, oh shit, I see the TV screen, it's not a try, I take it back, too bad. You made the decision, live with it, live by it, die by it. You don't change it afterwards And then everything after that, every single little tiny thing, it was TMO. And then the TMO was breaking up the match, saying, oh, let's go back 50 metres and look at this little nothing that happened later on. The TMO just dominated after that point. The TMO may as well have just reffed the match. He was that involved with everything, stopping it everywhere as well, and it just disrupted the match. So I think that was the first real contentious issue of the Rugby World Cup for 2015. You can't do that. You can't go back on your decisions. And like we see in the media, I think it was Wilkinson and Woodward that was saying, you know, do they go back to half-time and say anything from the first half and change the scores after the match and change the winners? That doesn't happen. So it can't happen in the match either. You make a call, you stick to it, and that's where I'm leaving it. I think that was disgusting. And it was that was the first thing that was really sad against Fiji as well, when it was just all the referee, TMO, anything that seemed to be able to stop Fiji from even looking like this match at all was happening to them, which was just horrible as well. I think Fiji, after the first half as well, which they did eventually score after that chance as well. They got the try through Nadolo, the crossfield kick from the fly half, who was Ben Volavola, former Waratah, now going to be a Crusader as well next season. You know, that was their try. It has resulted from that, that chance. There was a scrum after that, of course, from the knock on. And then Fiji turned it over, which leads me to another point as we sit about halfway through this match. Fiji dominated the set piece. They turned over English lineouts. They turned over English scrums. They dominated the breakdown at points as well in the second half especially. But it was a scrum and the lineout that really shocked me. That Fiji got lineout and scrum turnovers. That's almost more insulting to England than even letting them score a couple of tries or the one try that they eventually got. That was huge. That's like frailties in England's game in the forward pack, which is something that they'll want to be as tight as... I'll leave that to your imagination. But that was big, and I think Wales and Australia will be watching that and going, wow, well, their line-out looks a bit shaky, their scrum, goodness me, their scrum looks a bit dodgy. Australia will be rubbing their hands together knowing that they don't have the best scrum in the world either, and they think, well, we could compete here when it comes to the big forward 8 players. So a big thing coming out of that match from Fiji. I think they've done the other sides a lot of favours. They've done themselves a huge amount of respect, especially from my side of things here. They played the best. They were the best team in that match. If it was playing on performance, Fiji wins that match hands down. So the referee in that first half, I think, reasons that he was so bad, not penalising England for releasing at the breakdown, the try being called back, extremely strict on everything that the Fijians did. Any little half mistake, any 50-50 calls just instantly against the Fijians, and we're seeing blatant penalties from England that were just going unnoticed from Jaco Piper, which is just, it was a bit disgusting, but the second half just made things all the more different. It was a messy start to the second half. It was very testy between the two sides, unstructured, and that's how Fiji like it as well. But the line out again, the scrums, it continued, but more so the defence, like I spoke of earlier, massive from Fiji. They were gaining turnover at the ruck, which, again, it's like the scrums and lineouts, that's massive for Fiji to be getting ruck turnovers as the changes come on. We've seen the Vunipulas come on as well, and sure, they really strengthened up the ball running, but they lost a lot with their ball retention in the breakdown. So we move on the match. The Fiji were really dominating this game, and then more against the ref. We see any little thing that the crowd especially went against with the ref. He was very influenced, I think, from the crowd's jeers and things like that, and that was really disappointing as well. When we see that little tip tackle that wasn't given a yellow card, the crowd absolutely laid into him. Matualu, when he scored that try that wasn't given, huge reaction from the crowd, influencing the referee. He would have probably got murdered after the match had he not given that back, which is just disgusting. As I keep going back to things I've mentioned earlier on. But Nemani Ndolo, I think, was sublime for Fiji. The best player and has become a cult hero for the Rugby World Cup. But that's, I'd say, little of what he cares about coming from this match. He was easily the number one player for them. He burnt off a massive break, absolutely split Burgess in half. I know that, a lot of people aren't Sam Burgess fans at all. They'll be happy to see Ndolo just after the hour mark absolutely cream him, and then Fiji really on attack, a little kick over the top from the fullback, and he gets absolutely wiped out just a minute after the same thing happened to Volleyball, and they got a penalty identical on 1 minute later after England kicked back to them. They get wiped out as well, and the game plays on, which leads to a Mike Brown break, which ultimately leads to a try for England. Fiji did fantastically. They were within 7 points of the English with just 20 minutes or so to go. They had the chance, and they should have really been in that match a lot more. It was a disgusting show from the English point of view, who probably enjoyed the match and that they come home late, but from a neutral perspective, obviously England were always going to win. I don't really care who won. It's always good to see the underdogs perform as well, but just the whole feel about this match was just all wrong. It was all England's tournament, England's match, England's show, England's display. What about the other teams here? And I think everything was just all England, and it was just England's going to win the match. England's going to win. The ref's going to make them win. The crowd is going to make them win. Everything was just about England, and it was just kind of sickening to see that it was like Fiji had been plucked up from a beach out picking coconuts, which is so cliche and, what's the word? Just bad against, something like Fiji. That's the impression that was given across from that match. From, the way that Fiji got jeered by the crowd, and the way that the announcer, that's a big part as well, saying, that they're all huddled around the one TV, hoping the generator doesn't give out. I mean, what the hell is that all about? That is a horrible thing to say, and that gives you, it gave me at least, the impression that England were treating them like just a bunch of men picked up from a Fijian beach, a day's fishing, and now they're off. They can't go sit around the one TV. That is just so offensive and disrespectful to Fiji. I think that was a disgusting thing to say, and the whole feel about the match was disgusting and so disrespectful to Fiji as well, and it was not acceptable. I know the whole PC kind of crap and people saying they should lighten up and stuff, but this was just thing after thing after thing against the Fijians, and it just beat up against them. It just built up against them, and I watched that match, and I was happy for them in the second half. Fiji really got back in the game, but England were always going to get there. The commentators were saying England's got real lucky, England with a lucky break, England have lucked out, England with another lucky chance, England lucky to escape this match against Fiji, England lucky to get the 5th bonus point, England lucky. Well, I'm sorry, but luck just doesn't cut it. Luck, poor refereeing, TMO domination, horrible calls, racial remarks against Fijians. I mean, what else can give this a bad look against Fiji? I was quite disgusted about the whole thing, as you can probably tell. It's just horrible. And it got me thinking, is it because a host country has never lost the opening match of a Rugby World Cup? But no, that's not true. In 1991, England lost to New Zealand in the opening match of the World Cup, and in 2007, France lost to Argentina. So, only 2 occasions out of the 7, now 8 tournaments so far. But, I mean, why does it have to be so one-sided and dominant like that? Sure, it's home country, sure, it's their tournament, but pay some respect to your opposition, despite who they are. I don't care if they're ranked 500th in the rugby world, there's got to be respect. And I think the players, afterwards Rob Shaw was saying that they knew they'd come out this tough and that they're such a good team and things like that, which is all just dribble coming out his mouth. It's the acts on the field. It's the disrespect shown through everything else that was just not up to mark and was really ultimately disappointing, in my opinion. That is, of course, my opinion on the matter. It was great to see Fiji there. I think they played well. Ndolo's a fantastic player, and he's the life, he's the blood of Fiji. They're a great little team, and like I said to you guys on Twitter, they get treated like they're this bunch of players, picked up from their day jobs in a butchery and, things like that. But these guys are all fully professional. Now, they're professional rugby players. They're no different to all these English players, except they just get paid a shitload less money. And it's not just England, like I said earlier, all the big countries do this. I think England has just really opened up the whole can of worms with a few bad things said, a few bad calls, and a few things like that just going against them. But anyway, my rant is over. I think it was a great spectacle to watch in the second half, especially. England eventually run out winners 35-11 if you've lived under a rock. But in the end, a match where much was learned. England, weaknesses. Fiji, probably surprised a few people. I was hoping they're going to perform. What I do hope about now is that they can keep that momentum, keep that form, keep that passion for the rest of their tournament. Obviously, the chance of them going through even now are pretty bad, but if they can keep this passion and level of performance up, they could upset a team. Australia, Wales. Anyone got anything to say there? Do you take them for granted? No, you can't take them for granted. You can't play a weak side. I'm sorry, Australia. I'm sorry, Wales. You've got to play your best team for, 3 of your 4 matches. You're sure rest players against Uruguay, which is going to be normal as well, which, again, that could be pretty disrespectful against Uruguay, but you still got to, get out there and you've got to perform. And Uruguay, for their own rights, is a good enough team that if someone takes them for granted, could cause an upset. I remember in 2011 watching Russia just about upset the Wallabies in Nelson. That match was just coasting along, and Australia were just absolutely just pissing around waiting for the game to end, and then Russia scored 2 or 3 brilliant little tries, and shit hit the fan. Shit absolutely hit the fan. And, things like that can happen. Uruguay can win matches. They're at the Rugby World Cup. They're good enough to win matches. But I have gone on long enough. I could sit here and rage about things like this all along. Things like refereeing decisions, yellow cards, big Tier 1 unions. Not just England. I'm not picking on England here. I just think this match really condensed the whole issue into one big ball against them for such a massive occasion that no inches were given to Fiji, who were just as big of a part. I think Fiji were a bigger part of that opening match than England. England were blown off their feet. England were shocked and stunned. What else can you say? But, Fiji, good on you. Fully more respected to the Fijians. And another point that was brought up on Twitter in the discussions in the early hours this morning was, why do teams not travel to the islands more often? Now, this is something we might do a separate discussion on at a later date, but why do teams from the Southern Hemisphere and the Northern Hemisphere, when they come south, the South when they go north every single year, why not alternate? One year you go to the Northern Hemisphere, then you go to the islands, play Fiji, Tonga, Samoa, and then maybe a Pacific Island Barbarians team. Then why don't you go to America, play Canada, play the United States, play teams over there? Why can't this happen? Why does it have to be Northern Hemisphere, Southern Hemisphere, Northern Hemisphere, Southern Hemisphere? I'll tell you why. It's because of money. Single reason why is money. Go to Japan, go to these other countries, grow the game properly, and, make your money alternate years. It doesn't have to be every single year, but that's another discussion for another day. I'm going to go on for absolutely forever here. Great match from the Fijian. Second half was a brilliant watch. Very much enjoyed it. Hope there's plenty more action to come. I was not going to do this every day, but if we've got matches like this opener, then we may see more from it. And another point, if you have anything you'd like to say on the channel, I've put the offer out there for you guys before. If you'd like to have a chat about your team, about how your team played, about how you've thought about the matches as well, let me know in the comments. And we can get in touch on Skype and have a chat and make it into a video if you are keen for that to happen. We have some special guests lined up for the future as well for some matches, so plenty to come, plenty to happen, plenty to talk about. Oh, it's all happening. It's the Rugby World Cup. Get excited. We have more matches coming up in a few hours' time. I also may be changing upload schedule times to allow more for the Rugby World Cup, so for my time of day here in New Zealand, videos may be coming out in the evening as well rather than the morning. I suppose that's opposite for people in England that may see them, or in the Northern Hemisphere may see them in the morning as opposed to the evenings. But that is something we'll figure out as the tournament goes on. Any ideas for things you'd like to see? Any ideas for a name for this little Rugby World Cup wrap-up, as we may call it? Let me know as well. But again, still going. Shut up and leave you to get on with your day. Thank you for tuning in. Let me know your thoughts and comments below. And of course, get in touch on Twitter. Have some good chats for these matches. But next time, I'll see you wherever we may end up. Until then, take care.